Come along with me as I journal about a Victorian Christmas festival I went to and talk about Victorian Christmas ideas and other things you can do for this festive season, both in your journals and in your home. Hi friends, I'm Ashley and welcome to Darling Cottage Diary. These sticker sheets are finally available on my website. There are watercolor teacups of some of my own pieces that are in my china cabinet collection, and they're all antique and pretty, and they don't have that really wide white outline that a lot of other stickers do. So anyway, and if you missed this tutorial on how to make this cute little piano paper pocket, you can use any paper, but I use piano paper. That would be the last video on my channel, and I'll link that for you below and above as well. So this past weekend, actually it's yesterday, that's why this video is a little late, was because I was out doing a family Victorian Christmas street festival yesterday, and we had a really good time. I've mentioned it before, I did a video covering this last year as well. It's called Dickens on the Strand. I live in a small town near the Houston area, Houston, Texas, and there's an island that is just south of us called Galveston. And if you've ever heard of the 1900 storm or know anything about like early American or early Texan history, it was a really important port and could have been kind of like the New York City of the United States had that storm not happened. But we still have a historical district down there with all these beautiful Victorian age buildings, and every year the Historical Society puts on this Dickens era, Victorian era festival, and everybody dresses up, there's parades, we have so much fun, and we really enjoyed ourselves this year. And this is my hair and makeup that I did. If you dress up, you get half off of your tickets. So I always try to dress up. And the hair tutorial was from Bernadette Banner's Gibson Girl hair tutorial she did a year or two ago. And then the makeup tutorial, I just for my own research and as well as seeing other like historical makeup artists doing Victorian makeup, I just used a really light powder of kaolin clay, which is a natural clay. It's good for like putting in masks, and it's got a tiny bit of SPF, and it gives you a little white sheen, and it absorbs any oil that you have. I did put on a little mascara, but traditionally they would have used castor oil to kind of darken their and care for, like nourish their eyebrows and eyelashes, and then use a little cheek tint by either boiling rose petals or cochineal beetles and put that on their cheeks and lips. And you can get one from Little Bits Historical Makeup on Etsy, which I've loved hers, and it smells really good. It smells like roses. And then Benefit Makeup Company does a Benetint, and that one is good too, but the smell is not as good. So either of those is really, I've used them. I've used bottles and bottles and bottles of those in my regular makeup as well as for cosplay. Anyway, so it's very fun. It's fun to dress up and see everybody else dressed up, and it just adds to the ambiance that everybody gets into it. There, of course, are people dressed up in modern clothes, especially when it's really cold. But you always have your different groups. You have your Victorian ladies dressed up, like society ladies or even middle class ladies, and then you have the street urchins, which a lot of kids like to dress up as street urchins, and chimney sweeps, and then usually there's a horde of pirates, there's usually a steampunk group, there's usually like an American pioneer cowboy group, because all of that was happening around the same time period. And then Sometimes you have some like World War I people, which were at the very end, kind of in the Edwardian era, but it still fits. It fits the vibe. And so you have a whole lot of these different outfits that you see people wearing, and it's so much fun. And of course, you also have fantasy people who are dressed up as like the characters from A Christmas Carol, dressed up as Edgar Allan Poe, just all of these really wonderful historical figures and fantasy ideas from the time period. Now, this video is sponsored by you. Thank you so much to all of my patrons in my Ephemera Club and Inspiration Club for contributing every month for videos and ephemera, as well as anybody here who buys things through my affiliate links and just liking, subscribing, watching, any of that, sharing it, any of that helps me out and I really appreciate it. So this month, Vintage Holidays was the resounding vote for Ephemera Club's theme. And so I wanted to, we send holiday cards and gifts and everything else. And so I wanted to create some really pretty printable ephemera, digital download ephemera for that. And so this is what I came up with. These two, a mini envelope and a larger envelope. The postcard is a Victorian, I think it's 1902 was the postmark on it. And it does, I sized it to where it does fit inside the red envelope, and then the tiny green envelope, you can put all kinds of things in it. I'm going to put mini photos in it. You'll see that later in the video. But I'm very excited that these came out so well. I know I didn't cut the edges of this little lacy envelope super well. I was not in the mood for fussy cutting today, but I bit down and I did it, and so it turned out okay. And you know what? What is our cardinal rule for making badly cut, fussy cut edges better? You just ink them, and I'll be doing that later in the video as well. So the fabrics on both of these are also from Antique Fabrics, and I just kind of superimposed them on top of the shapes of my envelopes. And this one, you can make a vertical envelope, like kind of like a seed packet almost, for a vertical card, or a vertical. You could put dried flowers in there, you could put all kinds of stuff in there, or you can do it like a regular one. It looks fine both ways. Anyway, so my thoughts on this were, I wanted the page to be all visual. I didn't want any writing on the page this time. I had mostly writing on my page last year, and it is fun to turn back and look at it, but I wanted this to be just all of the clip art, all of the pretty all of the pretty Victorian pictures and clip art. And so I decided that I was going to write on the postcard as well as inside the white part of the envelope, and I really like how that turned out. So setting those aside for later because I wanted to finish the background of our page here. Now, of course, I took lots of pictures and I tried to take lots of videos, and I wanted to print them out, but I don't usually like full-size photos when I'm putting them in my journals or my scrapbooks because it takes up a whole page. And so I prefer to, this little mini printer, it prints out on a normal 4x6, but the little software app that you have on your phone, you can make a little collage. And so I typically do 4 so that they're little mini photos, and then use those in the journals. And it works so much better because not only am I saving materials, but it saves space quite a lot. I had a really hard time deciding which 4 photos to include in this page. I took a whole lot, but I'm happy with the 4 I chose. Obviously I wanted a picture of the 3 of us together, and I had the little Ebenezer's hut Ebenezer's Hall set up, and that was in one of the alleyways, and it had all of the official like Dickens on the Strand merch and all of this cool Victorian stuff. I got a really nice packet of tea from Oliver and Puff. I got a book that I'm going to show you later that's written by one of Charles Dickens' descendants, and she's a historian. It has all these Victorian traditions and recipes and stuff in it, and then of course a traditional picture of the boys with Saint Nick, and I think those probably encapsulate everything the best. Obviously I'm going to take the tape off after I'm done with the video, but those two I didn't want glued in there, so I have them in the little envelope. And then the one of me, I a lot of times will forget to get a picture of my whole outfit. Whenever I go to these things, I'll get a picture of my face or me kind of hiding in a group, but anyway, I'm trying to make an effort to record how I dress because I do it different every year so I can look back when I can. Anyway, so my mom took that picture when I was watching the boys play in the little snow pit. Now it was about this time while I was filming that a storm rolled in and it got quite dark, so I wanted to make sure I had enough light for filming, and I love candlelight. Y'all love candlelight. It worked out that I found this tiny candelabra set at a local antique store, and it's been perfect for adding extra light because photography lights it doesn't look good. So I'm very happy about that. So I took my last picture was of that little shingle that it's hung out there the whole month of December outside that shop, and they repainted it. This is actually an older photo that I took because somehow I only took the video of it this time, but I liked it as kind of the title of the page rather than writing it because it just looked very rustic and Victorian, and but I wanted a little texture behind it because the paper was looking a little flat, and so of course we gotta add a little bit of my paste here, and I debated whether coloring it with some ink, like some colored ink or not, but I kind of liked the neutral background with the white on top of it. I knew that the extra pieces I was going to add were going to have color in it, and so I didn't want to overwhelm the page with color, especially because you think Victorian era, you think kind of like sepia tones because of the photography at the time, and I just kind of wanted the neutral tones with pops of green and red and metallic for a traditional, Yuletide theme. And I'm going to be layering a couple of other little die cuts and things to just bring some of the ambiance, bring some of the memories forward. Obviously, we don't have a king or queen in the United States, but I'm not sure if she's the president or if she's just like elected every year. She's somebody important in the Galveston Historical Society who plays Queen Victoria every year, and that was her carriage in the earlier little snippets going by, being pulled by the white horses, and so I wanted to include that too. As with anything that evokes lots of emotions and memories, music is extremely important, and that's one reason I love this festival so much, is because there used to be a really amazing bagpipe band named the Rogues. I think they all retired, but they play bagpipes and the Balrock Irish band, drum, and sometimes a fiddle, sometimes it was usually those three instruments if they had anything at all. And they would kind of walk around the streets and you would hear that music the whole time. Since they retired, there have been a couple of people who pop up to play music in the street, and then you also have all of the instruments that are played during the parades, and it's music that you don't typically hear. It's not, people don't typically try to look up bagpipe music on their streaming device, right? People don't typically, it's the different kind of music, and hearing live music, there's this very spiritual thing, I think, that for humans that comes with listening to live music, especially in a group, I think there's something very deep and archaic and moving about it that has to do with not only tying mood and memory together, but also just giving an air to things. I think that's why we love Christmas music so much. It's the same comforting songs we hear at the same comforting time of year. And it was really fun. And so I wanted to highlight the music because fiddles, the tubas, the bagpipes, those are typically what you hear down there, depending on who's playing. And then I really liked the front part of that envelope. That's why I kind of hid the back. I didn't like how the end of it looked, especially because I didn't ink the edges before I filmed it. So anyway, the walnuts. Okay, so I realize the walnut is kind of a hallmark of my channel, but the Victorian Christmas tradition of when you are hollowing out walnuts and then putting little things inside them, gluing them very lightly together and hanging them on a tree is the whole inspiration behind my little confetti walnuts. So, little story time here. Most people know that trees and walnuts and mistletoe and everything, a lot of those traditions come from the Victorians. But personally, I made a set of traditional Victorian walnut ornaments. It was like, I think I made a dozen of them with my kids when they were very, very little. And inside I put little toys in a couple of them. It's actually kind of hard to find tiny toys to put in there, but like toy rings and just little things. And as the Victorians did, sometimes they would have tiny little, treats in there, like little candies in there. But most often people would write wishes for the new year on a little piece of paper. They would roll them up and lightly glue them together, hang them on the tree, and put little bells and charms and stuff on them, or sparkly things. And then Christmas Eve or Christmas morning, they would each choose one. Each person in the family would choose one, crack it open, and that wish was supposed to come true for them. Whichever one they got, that was supposed to come true for them for that year. So there were a couple of them that I think there was one that year that I made them that I had an extra one and I didn't crack it open, and I thought the nut was really pretty. I liked how I decorated it, so I just put it away. And several years later, cue it's 2020. Everybody knows what was going on in 2020. It was a rough year for a lot of us. I personally was going through a divorce that Christmas, and it was really hard. And we had our tree up, and my dog, I have a boxer, and every once, she really likes walnuts, and I don't know why, but she pulled that off of the Christmas tree 6-7 years after I had made it, chewed it open, and I came home to the little note that was inside. And I had written things like prosperity or just health, good health. I'd written all just generic happy things, right? And that one that broke open had a note in it, and it was laying on the floor right under the tree that said, "Love will flourish." And I am not maybe I am a super sentimental person, but I especially that year, I was not feeling sentimental. And rather than just clean up everything and throw it away, I threw away the pieces of broken nutshell and saved the ribbon and used the ribbon for something else. But that note I couldn't bring myself to throw away. And so I put it on my fridge under a magnet, and it wasn't too long after that my boyfriend and I started dating. And it was just this little comforting sign that I got from the universe or whatever it was, that it's so funny to think about now, because maybe this time of year makes everybody feel sentimental, but it's still there. It's still there 4 years later. I can't bring myself to do anything with it other than just leave it there and see it on my way out the door every morning going to work, because since then love has flourished, and it's been really amazing. And so if you're having a hard time this holiday season, I encourage you to just hang in there and do things that make you happy, and try to enjoy the quietness of the season. Even if ends up being very busy, find the quiet moments, and you'll hear some signs and you'll hear some things that make you feel better. So I'll go ahead and be quiet and let you listen to my little antique Victorian nib write the tales of today. I ran out of space, so I decided to continue writing on this part of the envelope. And what I'm writing about that struck me so much about yesterday was, I loved, of course, seeing my children happy, and I loved spending time with my mom and us just having a little fun day together, looking at pretty things. And the thing about this in general, the ambiance of the crowd that struck me was that there are different like outdoor stages and arenas kind of set up. Some of them are built into the Strand where they have performers come all times of the year, and some of them are just erected for that day. This one was one of the permanent ones, and there's restaurants all around it and shops all around it. Big open like elevated space for people to come in. They had benches set up for everybody to go sit. And there were only two of the really big ones, and then the rest of them were really small and just on the street. But the one big one that was the most crowded, there was standing room only. There were probably 300 people sitting there. It wasn't some big flashy display. There was no music. It wasn't a big theater production. There were no special effects. It wasn't anything except for one man standing with a microphone reading Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. And he had a British accent. I don't know if he was actually British or if he was just an American actor, but he was just reading A Christmas Carol to hundreds of people, and everybody was just captivated. And it struck me as, in our modern time, that being the most popular attraction warmed me so much because of things like smartphones and things like just any screen and the easy access to music, and we're very overstimulated all the time, and it's easy to get bored in modern life, even though we have so much entertainment available to us. And so the fact that the most popular attraction was a man just standing there reading a story, and people were just listening to a story with no like visual input, nothing like that. No music, no sound effects, just listening to a man read. And it is a classic, and it is a wonderful story, of course. It's just that, and along with like the way I was talking about listening to live music earlier, I think telling stories in that way is such a human thing, and it's easy to lose faith in things. It's easy to feel it's easy to feel jaded by a lot of things in modern life, and that we miss something being modern people. But the fact that so many people naturally wanted to sit there and just listen to this man just reading a story, it just made me so happy. So I wanted to remember that, and that's what I wrote on this. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a wonderful week, friends. And after about 5 years of really struggling with this time of year, this is the first year I've felt Christmas spirit, Yuletide spirit in a really long time, and I hope you feel that too. I'll be doing Yuletide Christmassy type videos up until the end of the year, because it's just I'm feeling it this year. So I really hope you enjoyed it. Please leave me your favorite Christmas story, movie, film, book, whatever, in the comments below, and I can't wait to see you next week. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful week. Bye.